Good evening. Amid an outbreak of the fatal Nipah virus in India, the Philippines Department of Health says the virus is rare and has not been seen in the country since 2014. In a statement, DOH spokesperson Albert Domingo says the Nipah virus is a rare disease that comes from animals such as bats, pigs, and horses. According to Domingo, the Nipah virus was last recorded in the Philippines in 2014 when 17 cases were logged in Sultan Kudarat. Domingo says during that time, the DOH observed the symptoms of flu, inflammation of the brain, and inflammation of the brain's protective layer and the spinal cord. He says the DOH continued to monitor the virus even after it was no longer detected. He reminds that the Nipah virus may be prevented by avoiding bats and other animals with diseases. Domingo also advises to consume well-cooked meat approved by the National Meat Inspection Service. On Tuesday, January 27, India's health ministry reported 2 individuals were infected in West Bengal, while 196 people who came in contact with them tested negative. Following this, nearby countries Thailand, Nepal, and Taiwan implemented precautionary measures in their major airports. The Indian agency said the situation was under constant monitoring and that necessary public health measures were in place. The Commission on Elections is postponing the first Bangsamoro parliamentary elections, citing legal and operational concerns. In an interview with reporters on Wednesday, January 28, Comelec chairperson George Erwin Garcia says the postponement was approved through a Comelec en banc resolution. According to Garcia, the executive director, the law department, and the Bangsamoro study group recommended that it was no longer feasible to hold the parliamentary elections on March 30. Garcia says this was due to the lack of a redistricting law in effect for the Bangsamoro Parliament and insufficient time to prepare for the elections. The Parliament approved a redistricting measure on third and final reading on January 13, with Chief Minister Abdul Rauf Makakua signing the law on January 20. Citing operational reasons, Garcia notes that the poll body would fall short from its preparations given that the supposed elections would commence in 2 months, including the use of an automated election system. With this postponement, Garcia says that the resolution also effectively terminates Comelec resolutions on the calendar of activities in period of certain prohibited acts for the parliamentary elections. Garcia also says that it is now up for the Congress to craft a law fixing a new date for the parliamentary elections. He appeals to Congress not to hold the parliamentary elections by 2027 or 2028 so that Filipinos can focus on electing the president and vice president. The Philippines says it will use its role as Association of Southeast Asian Nations Chair for 2026 to help advance negotiations on the South China Sea Code of Conduct. In a press briefing, Department of Foreign Affairs spokesperson for ASEAN Matters Dominic Xavier Imperial says the Code of Conduct will be among the key issues to be discussed during the retreat of ASEAN foreign ministers on Thursday, January 29. While he says it was premature to predict the specific outcomes of the meeting, Imperial says ASEAN foreign ministers are expected to take up the status of the negotiations. As ASEAN chair, he says the Philippines is well positioned to help maintain momentum in the talks by facilitating dialogue among parties.
It's hard to say what kind of outcome we will have, but the important thing here is that when the parties sit down to do the negotiations, to continue the negotiations, what's important is we will have some kind of movement as to the last agreements that we had in the previous meetings. We'll be happy to have a movement, of course, and I would also like to underscore that the Philippines as chair is really facilitating the progress of the discussions.
Imperial also stresses that there remains a shared commitment among ASEAN member states and China to conclude the Code of Conduct within the agreed 2026 timeline. He says this is consistent with ASEAN established guidelines and frameworks. Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro is hosting the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting from January 28 to 29. This marks the first major ministerial gathering under the Philippines ASEAN chairship. The retreat will bring together foreign ministers and senior officials from ASEAN member states and representatives from the ASEAN Secretariat. Vice President Sara Duterte says she will discuss with her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, calls to change his legal counsel in the International Criminal Court. In a chance interview at The Hague, Netherlands, Vice President Duterte was asked about calls for their family to replace the former president's lawyers. Rodrigo Duterte is under the custody of the ICC over charges of crimes against humanity in relation to his drug war.
Oo nga, sinabi ko pala na itatanong ko yan kanina. Nakalimutan ko siya. Sorry, I will ask that question tomorrow of former President Duterte. I forgot that question.
The supposed calls to change his lawyers were made after the ICC pretrial Chamber 1 determined that the former president was fit to stand trial. The chamber rejected the Duterte camp's request for an indefinite adjournment of the proceedings over Rodrigo's alleged cognitive impairment. The chamber also scheduled the start of the confirmation of charges hearings against the former president on February 23. The ruling stemmed from the findings of a panel of 3 court-appointed medical experts who unanimously deemed the former president fit to participate in the trial. Rodrigo Duterte's lead counsel, Nicholas Kaufman, declared that they will further challenge the chamber's ruling through a leave to appeal. The lawyer accused the court of denying the former president due process by not allowing his lawyers to submit evidence or contest its medical assessment. Former Department of Public Works and Highways engineer Brice Hernandez and 2 others plead not guilty to graft charges in relation to an allegedly anomalous flood control project in Bulacan. Hernandez, along with Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office officials JP Mendoza and Cristina May del Rosario Pineda, entered their pleas during their arraignment before the Sandigan Bayan's 3rd Division on Wednesday, January 28. The case is in relation to an allegedly anomalous 92.8 million peso flood control project in Bulacan. In addition to the 3, former Senator Bong Revilla, former DPWH officials RJ Dumasig, Juanito Mendoza, and Emilita Capistrano Juan are also facing charges of graft and malversation of public funds through falsification of public documents before the Sandigan Bayan's 4th and 3rd Divisions. Revilla, Dumasig, and Juanito Mendoza's arraignment is set for February 9. The preliminary conference of Hernandez, JP Mendoza, and Pineda is scheduled on February 13. Meanwhile, the pretrial of Hernandez, Wat, Pineda, and JP Mendoza is set for February 19. Dumasig was present at Wednesday's arraignment but asks the court to defer it due to the absence of his legal counsel. Dumasig says he is still in the process of hiring a new lawyer. Hernandez and JP Mendoza previously faced the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to testify on the supposed collusion between lawmakers, contractors, and government officials in a kickback scheme involving infrastructure projects. These are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.